We've got a great session here, and as I was just saying, I wanted to welcome back to A&H and congratulate Armando Zamora for taking the reins once again at that agency. I'm sure most of you joining us today know that he was the founding director of A&H back in the major reforms of the rebate government in 2003, 2004, and when Colombia went through an amazing energy reform process that had a huge restructuring of Ecopetrol, had a major effort by the Ministry of Mines and Energy, and created the National Hydrocarbons Agency, the upstream regulator and promotion agency, to really try and boost Colombia's hydrocarbons competitivity. And so Armando served for 8 years, if I remember, from 2003 to 2011. Probably came to La Jolla 6 or 7 of those 8 years and spoke about what he was doing at A&H. So again, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you in the La Jolla conference this time with earbuds and on the web, but nevertheless, we'll get a drink together another time. Also, we look forward to and are pleased to welcome Ana Duque, the country chair from Shell, who's joining us today. She's a lawyer by training from the Universidad de los Andes. She has a master's in international affairs. She became Shell country chair in 2017. She worked in government and stakeholder relations before that. And so hopefully we'll be able to troubleshoot her connection here, and she'll be able to join us just straight away. Final point I want to make is this wouldn't be a discussion in a panel here without the poll. All of you have hopefully been able to participate in the polling so far. Just above the discussion field or box there, you see the word polling. So once I hand this over to Jared, I'm going to launch the poll. It will be one that I think will be discussed heavily throughout our conversation this morning, and we look forward to the audience's thoughts just on exactly how perhaps Colombia could recover some of its hydrocarbon reserve potential. So, without any further ado, Jared, cut right over to you, and we'll keep trying to make sure we get Anna sorted out here. So, Jared, thanks again. Over to you, please.
Sounds good, Jeremy. Thanks for the kind introduction, and again, echo the comments that you shared in our intros this morning to the outstanding work you and your team have done to make this La Jolla conference a successful one. And one thing I would say is, over the first couple of days of the conference, much of the conversation has been shaped, and I think rightfully so, by the combination of the supply deluge caused by the OPEC plus deal falling apart in early March, and then the demand destruction resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Colombia, which is, as we all know, relies heavily on oil exports, around half of its export revenues, is particularly vulnerable to the price slump. Moreover, across Colombia, the goal to strike an appropriate balance between managing the spread of the virus and economic activity continues to evolve. I'm guessing that many of you saw the news last evening that President Duque has extended the mandatory quarantine in Colombia through the end of May. The resulting impacts, in combination of the oil market volatility, reduced economic activity, has resulted in significant challenges. Sustained lower prices will drive down FDI in the sector, one analysis says, by more than 20% year over year. Meanwhile, the fracking pilots that industry had been prepared to execute this year appear to be delayed, and regulatory uncertainty remains as the Council of State ruling on the technical regulations for fracking have been postponed due to the COVID-19 crisis. Managing the fiscal and economic aspects of the oil sector are also crucial. Recent changes to the country's tax and royalty distribution framework and departments far from Bogota and the producing regions have provided hope for improved community development and relations. So with that rosy picture, I'd like to pose the first question to both of you. What role will the energy sector have in supporting economic recovery in Colombia? And second part, what does a recovery stimulus and policy package look like with regards to the energy sector? Armando, I'll toss that one over to you.
is that the role of the energy sector actually started in the during the crisis, because this is one sector. but we are preparing well. But that's something for the ministry to. This is beyond the all of the NH. That's for the ministry to decide. But we are working as a team to consider that possibility. I will leave it there for the time being, Jared, and we'll be open for specific questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Armando. So Anna, looks like we have you back. You look more clear. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
I hear you better. I changed my settings, so hopefully it's going to work better for all of us. Okay, you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, it's loud and clear. So I don't know if you caught the first question. I'm going to give you a chance to respond that from your perspective, what role will the energy sector have in supporting economic recovery in Colombia? And then what sort of recovery and stimulus package, what should that look like with regard to the energy sector in Colombia?
So I think, first of all, it's a pleasure being with you, Jared, Armando, and of course, a big thanks to Jeremy and all the team behind this summit that has been a challenge, I know, but it's great to see faces, see names in the world, so it's very good to be here. I think that today, more than ever, our livelihoods, our well-being, our communities depend on reliable source of energy. The lockdown that we are facing today in a sunny Bogota, or the stay-at-home policies, or the social distancing, have demonstrated even more that crucial or key role of energy in the humankind. I think that being able to have power in the hospitals, power in our houses, again, is a very good reminder of the importance of energy. Of course, the case of Colombia is not different. We are seeing globally that the energy challenge has increased. We are seeing duplications in the population by 2017, and we are going to see a lot of changes in the dynamics of people moving to the centers and to the cities. And again, Colombia is not an exception, even though that Colombia have a very good, let's say, energy system. There's some areas of improvement that we are working, and we need to continue working with the government. And I would like to talk about a couple ones in this first question. So I think that natural gas has a key role in Colombia energy security and energy transition, and it's already playing a key role. But we need to continue making happen, and we need to continue working with the government in incentives. And I would like to highlight 3 areas where I believe we need to continue working with the government. I must say that during this COVID and all in the dropping the oil prices situation, we have been working very close with the government in a collaborative environment, trying to move forward measures that Dr. Zamora already mentioned. Some of the measures are already in place, and some others are still under assessing. But I would like to highlight that we have a very good environment of collaboration, of sense of urgency, and we have been working through this particular crisis. However, we cannot lose the long-term vision, and is that we need to continue working in Colombia competitiveness. I think that's the cornerstone. In particular, we have been seeing in Colombia a very good story to tell about the offshore, and Dr. Zamora mentioned offshore improvements, contractually, regulatory, fiscal, have enabled investment of companies like Shell in the last years. However, the case for natural gas, and particularly natural gas produced in-country offshore, still needs some improvements. 3 areas where we are working, and I think that we should continue working. The first one is how we massify the use of natural gas in country. Depending on the data that you are looking, between 20 and 25% of Colombians still not have access to natural gas. And even some Colombians that already have access to natural gas still have doubts about using natural gas in the industrial sector, in transport sector. So I think there's a lot to be done. The government is making tremendous efforts to promote the use of natural gas in different sectors, to try to replace in the industrial sector the use of coal and diesel for natural gas. And I think that we need to continue working in a joint effort between the industry, the government, the consumers, and the community to massify the use of natural gas as a key building block in the energy transition. The second big area that we need to continue working to make it competitive, the natural gas producing country, and secure the sustainability of the resources in country, is of course the transportation system, right? Dr. Zamora mentioned the oil transportation system, but it's not different the case of the gas transportation system. And I think that we need to look to at least 2 dimensions in the transportation system. The third one is related to secure that we have a system that is able to connect the different markets, right? The center markets of the interior market with the cost market and vice versa, that we manage to have a connection or a transport system that can bring the gas produced at the coast into the interior and vice versa. So I think that in terms of capability of the system, we need to continue working and find alternatives to make it sufficient. And the second part of the transport system challenge is related to the remuneration, right? So how competitive is the remuneration system also for the gas transport system if you compare Colombia with other countries? So I think that's the second dimension. And the third one that we need to continue also working in this big advocacy, like long-term partnership with the government communities and companies is of course related to gas commercialization. We need to make sure that we have a framework that is competitive compared with the other markets in the world. And I would like to just leave a word around that last element, and it's flexibility. We need to take a look to the current structure of the gas market and ask the question if it's flexible enough to allow new sources of natural gas produced in countries like unconventional, like offshore, and even the ones that are in the process onshore to get into the grid. So those are some of the ideas. I think that, again, the government of Colombia and the industry have a good history working together. Offshore is a very good example. We managed to have a competitive framework for upstream, offshore in country. A couple of things needs to be done also in that area. But right now, the main focus should be in the three elements that I mentioned, in the transport of gas, in the massification, how we can make the gas the choice of a lot of people that right now is using some other energetics, and finally, how we manage to have a market that is competitive, that is flexible internally and externally.
Right, that's very interesting. I think, and both of your initial answers sort of it's opened a couple of different paths. So you mentioned the energy transition, which I want to come back to in a bit, because both of you talked about competitiveness, and I've seen some of the questions here coming in from folks online about competitiveness, and so. What in your minds, and what can the government and ANH in particular do to make Colombia's energy sector more competitive globally? When companies are looking for low cost of supply and declining capex dollars, how can Colombia stand out globally? And both of you also mentioned the transportation and possible government intervention, and maybe Armando, if you could, to the extent you're able, to shed a little more perspective in that area.
Yes, some more detail into how we are preparing for the post-COVID world and the post-OPEC Plus crisis world. We are working along all lines of competitiveness. As I said, we are reviewing the fiscal terms of our contracts, which, by the way, we believe are already competitive. We are a medium to low cost country, but the logistics can be improved, and this is a work we need to do together with the ministry. And but serious thought and serious actions are taking place now in this situation. I think if there is any emergency intervention in the transport rates, it will be only temporary. But for the next wave of regulatory tariff settings, the government is preparing for a much more efficient and a better tariff structure. That I can, and we are working together on that. And I can see for the first time in many years that the government is realizing that they have to do something about it. Because yes, the tariffs are excessive, the logistics are excessive. There is also some degree of, I must say it, of market dominance on the part of Ecopetrol, and that has to be reviewed as well, or has to be better regulated. But I'm not saying anything against anyone, because everybody is aware that this is the case. In terms of, there will be institutional strengthening and some institutional review. It's also in the cards. Our contracts are being reviewed, to learn from the different generations of contracts. It's a reform, and we believe we are getting there. Probably we need to go back a little bit to the most competitive contract types or models that we had in the 1910, 1912, 2010, 2012. There is also a lot of investment that we are reviewing the ANH and Geological Service investment in basic knowledge of the hydrocarbons potential. We believe we do have the potential to produce more hydrocarbons. And I should just say that, for example, in gas, even though our commercial reserves estimations have gone down last year because there were some technical adjustments, the already discovered or indicated or contingent reserves can be about 8 times what we have already as commercial reserves. We only need to get our act together, in terms of environment, communities, transport, market design, everything that Ana Maria has mentioned. And if we can agree, we can work together, there is a lot of potential for gas, not only for the internal market, but for exports to the region and to the world as well, especially the Caribbean. So there is a lot of potential. There is a lot of things that we can do and are doing. And I am pretty confident that at least in the Latin American landscape, we can be first in line for the next wave of investments. We are also continuing with the permanent area assignment process, PPAA, with the permanent, let's say, bidding rounds process, and we are set to close the current one in November. We will have our conference, our big conference. We will also be virtual like this. We are learning from this. And we will be launching our 2021 Colombia bidding round as well. So we are not stopping, and it's going to be very interesting. All our promotion will be online, will be digital. All our packages, all our interactions are now being designed to be digital. We are entering really fast into the new world, and that's where we want to position ourselves in that respect. So, have I answered your
Yeah,
question?
I think so. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add or some perspective on that, or?
No, I think that this is working very well. I think that the success of Colombia in the recent years is the ability to review themselves all the time. So the government of Colombia is trying to understand all the time if there's a better contract, how it can be improved. Let's have an open dialogue with the industry, with foreign governments. And I think that's something that we need to continue to do to get the resources to the final customers in a competitive, affordable, and cleaner way. So no, I don't want to add anything else. I think that is clear, and we need to try to continue working on that path. Of course, the current situation will create extra level of complexity and extra measures, but the long run of competitiveness for Colombia needs to continue working. So,
I would just add one more thing, and that is related to energy transition. There are two aspects that we need to, I think, that are very clear. Number one, the energy transition is not let's say, we can do both things at the same time. We can improve our energy production of oil and gas, not only for consumption, but for the world. And we can also engage into an energy transition. And in that energy transition, precisely gas is the source of energy for the transition. So there is a lot of room, as Ana says, to make gas more important in our energy matrix. The government is engaging also in a very big push towards renewable energies, but the world will still need the oil and gas for the next decades. And I was discussing this with a group of environmentalists. There is no reason for the region to just let those countries with reserves already discovered, like in the Middle East or Russia, to grab the whole of the market. We can still be part of the market. We have a share to grab, and we just don't. Why would we just give it away? So we want our fair share of the international market. And this is the other area I would like to focus. The government is engaging now in a more international presence in the energy sector, because we believe there will be a new energy order. We are now part of OECD. We are part of the International Energy Agency, and we will also have a presence in those fora, the International Energy Forum and International Energy Agency. So we will see you there, all of you, in the near future.
Thank you for that additional comment around the energy transition. I think that follows along, like Silvana said in her initial regards around developing the offshore gas and the capability that Colombia has in that area. If you have nothing else to add here, I'd like to just pivot briefly to one other area. Leave it open though if you have any other thing to say on this one.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We probably have 10 minutes to move forward.
I'm sorry. What's that, Armando?
Is it 10 minutes we have?
I think we have about 13 minutes. Yeah, so a couple more areas I'm going to try to cover here. So I want to pivot to the unconventional pilots for a moment. So a couple questions on that. I think with respect to how do you see it unfolding as far as timing, and you mentioned both all the movements you've made to get the regulations ready, even though we're working in this virtual environment, and that those regulations are moving along. And then sort of the follow-on to that is if the operators are able to successfully execute the pilots, the timing and process for them to move from pilot stage to exploration.
Yes. Okay. There is a very comprehensive plan to make the pilot projects a very well integrated and comprehensive scientific project or scientific endeavor, because we will really want what I mean. I was part of a panel of specialists that recommended this approach in order to allay the fears of the community that the water is going to be made scarce, that the water streams will be contaminated, that there will be a lot of impact on the health of the community, on the environment and the diversity and so on and so forth. So the idea of these pilot projects is to show the communities and the communities, local communities and the community at large, what really hydraulic fracturing is about, what the real impacts are, and how they can be managed. And this will be very transparent. There will be a center for transparency, and they will be integrated. There will be environmental baselines, water table baselines on community, and those baselines will be produced by independent, scientific, and very credible authorities. So it is a very interesting project, and the companies that are interested in doing this are big international companies, and the Ecopetrol with experience and the resources that are really into it are just waiting to see what the regulations will be. We already have the first batch of regulations, the technical, the administrative, and the environmental rules already for discussion. I would say that the critical part, the critical area is the environmental conditions. There are some, because this is an integrated research experiment, then the draft requirements for environmental baselines are quite ambitious, and they require establishing the baselines for many species, and it requires the observation and the monitoring of water dynamics for probably a year. But this is only the draft. Ongoing discussions are adjusting those aspirations to the practical realities and what is materially possible. So we see a lot of good intentions on the part of the Ministry of Environment to make these aspirations viable, and because this is what the government wants to do. So that's number one. And the second one, I would say critical part, it has to do with the communities. And a very good thing has happened since the beginning of, in the last year, since the report with recommendations happened, and that is that I don't have the right quote, but I read somewhere that the attitude of the communities towards these experiments, at least, have flipped from negative to positive in the majority. I don't have the exact numbers, so I won't quote them. But the communities have been pleased to see the government listen to their fears, to their requirements, to their aspirations, and align the presence of this industry and these projects with their aspirations and requirements. So, as Anna was saying, this is an area where I think it's going to be critical. That's regarding the pilot projects. What I have to say now that everything is on track, and I am positive. I am optimistic that it's going to be possible to have the pilot projects starting next year, probably the beginning, first half of the year.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anna. I know unconventionals really isn't in your wheelhouse, so to speak, but Armando did address communities and stakeholders. I think maybe some outside of our sector may think that offshore doesn't mean there's stakeholders and community interest, and so the social license to operate is critical for our sector, and wondering what you can talk about to some of the efforts that Shell has undertaken in Colombia, or sort of any best practices that because as critical as the social license is on the unconventionals, I think I'm sure you probably share that view for the offshore as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Jared. So we started this journey of offshore in Colombia in 2010, when we got one of the blocks that we right now have in partnership with Noble. And something that we have been learning for the last years is how important it is to involve since early stages the community in different dimensions. It's not only that we are going there and just socialize the project and told them, oh, this is what we are going to do. It's how we can build together the project to make it work for both parts, right? So it takes time. It takes openness in the sense that we also have a lot to learn from the communities to be able to execute our project safely, on time, on budget. And I think that we have a very interesting experience in Colombia when we were doing the initial phases of the countries that I just mentioned. We were trying to implement, of course, a significant program and engagement strategy with fishermen, which are the primary stakeholders from the communities in the offshore. Even though that our blocks are far away from the shore, we understand that working with them, it was critical. And working as I mentioned before, in a two-way conversation. What we can learn from the extremely important knowledge that they have about the ocean, the behavior, the way that the people live around the shores and everything, and how we can also transfer to them some of the knowledge or the core values of our industry. So we start working with the fishermen in several projects, and there's one that is very close to my heart and is related to how we can transfer the HSE standard that we have as a priority in our industry to the artisanal fishermen, right? So how we can make that every time that they go out for fishing with their equipment, they can come back to home in one piece, and they can have the same level or some level of awareness about the importance of HSE in their daily job. So we managed to put together a very interesting project with them. When we were able to understand how they work, we were able to actually work with them using their knowledge to plan and to execute our project. And I think that created a very good framework for collaboration that we hope we can maintain. Of course, it's something that we need to keep doing all the time. It's not something that you go and do at the beginning of the project and just forget. It's a tremendous effort that implies relationships not only with the communities, but with local authorities, with the academy in the area. So our approach is having a multi-stakeholder early engagement, but most important, trying to involve the different elements of the community, academic sector, and of course the local authorities into the construction, execution, and development of the project. And I think that has been successful. Offshore is definitely a challenge. It's new in the country. It's still a frontier area, and that's something important to highlight. We have a lot of expectation. We have a good prospectivity, but we need to prove it, and we need to continue working to make it a reality. And that implies not only the regulatory element that we just mentioned and the contractual and the fiscal elements, but are also the ability to gain the trust from the communities, from the local government, to develop sustainable projects in offshore Colombia for country.
Great, thank you. We have just a few more minutes. I want to going to give Armando an opportunity to comment on the social license issue. I know he has a couple interesting things to note there, and also we got a follow up, Armando, on the unconventional pilot projects. I want to ask what the biggest risk related to moving from the pilot stage to the commercial stage, and who will make the final decision, the government or the Consejo de Estado. So briefly on, if you could address that, and then I have one last question if we have time for you both.
Yes, time is running out, but I saw the very interesting questions. I probably forgot to mention another bottleneck that we have in the transition from pilot projects to commercial, and that relates to your question and has to do with the High Court, the Council of State rulings. The problem we have here is that the Council of State asked also for the National University for a concept from an expert concept on the pilot projects, and the National University came with two concepts. One for the development of the unconventionals, and the other one against the development of conventionals. And we are right now studying those two diverging or opposite concepts. One is science-based, factual, based on the experience and the knowledge of how this works, and the other one is based on more open questions about energy and sustainability, development, policy, probably a review of the whole policy, energy policy of the country, and this is going to be critical. So we have in July, let's say, an expert witness session in the Council of State, and that will be critical. But I think the Council, this is a very complex project. So we will see, depending on how it goes, we will see the green light of the pilot project. But also, depending on how the pilot projects are managed, because it will be very public, very visible, and based on the opinion of the communities and the community at large, the society at large, the Council of State will rule on whether to allow for the commercial development of those projects. So it's very early to say, but we are making good, positive progress. The pilots are going ahead, and let's say the expert comments of the university will be challenged soon in the court. There was there were questions about whether our reserves are competitive at the current prices. Of course, they are not. I can see Jeremy, probably time is running out. We believe our reserves are competitive, and we believe the new energy order, there will be a new energy order, and there are two options. The hard options of a conflict in the Middle East that will destroy many of the production capacity, or the soft, which will be a world of let's say, where the production quotas would be agreed, and there will be a more stable balance between supply and demand. But this will probably give, rise to a whole new conference about the new energy order. We don't know.
I just wanted to say we got a little bit of a delayed start, so if Armando, Jared, and Anna can stay, we can go a few more minutes, maybe take another 5 minutes if Anna, if everyone's okay with that. So I want to get the poll in, and of course I think Jared has one or two more questions. So if you all don't mind, let's go 5 minutes forward. Let's keep going. This has been great.
Yeah, that's great, Jeremy. I appreciate you making the offer. I saw we were kind of against a break, so I was gonna take a little moderator license to go over, knowing I wouldn't blow up the agenda. So it's the last question I have for both of you. I think it's kind of come across through our conversation in the midst of the lockdown and remote working. We've all adjusted to new normals. I now hear a lawnmower outside my house, so if you're picking up anything from me, that's or dogs barking, kids running into rooms. It's created huge changes across the world, and I'd like to hear your perspectives from both the government agency and industry with regard to how it's impacted your productivity, how you've managed these new demands on top of your typical schedule. Just more of I think something we share with the audience, but not a little more of a lighthearted question as we wrap this up.
Anna?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I think these lockdowns are creating a lot of awareness of things that we take for granted, like, for example, energy, right? Having reliable energy every day in our houses, in our streets, in our cities. I think, of course, that during these days, our priorities in Shell, of course, remains the same. Our priorities continue to be the well-being of our staff, our people, contractors, but also our best efforts to actually taking care of our customers in the best way we can do, of course, with all the constraints and all the complications, and of course, continue supporting our communities and the countries where we are working. We are responding in different ways in Shell, right? So, of course, in the case of Colombia, the first couple of weeks were a little more chaotic, right? So people was trying to understand how to balance properly, be connected to their day-to-day work and taking care of the children. I have a dog as well that is all the day around the house trying to make some comments about my meetings and everything. But I think at the end, it's incredible the ability of the human race to be able to adapt. And to date, I think that we are more productive than, I don't want to say that ever, but the Colombia Shell business unit is extremely productive. And we managed to create ways to continue engaging the people in the conversation, to maintaining the company producing. So I think that is something that is surprised me very positively about the capability of the humans to actually adapt to new situations. I think that we need to continue in this path. This is something that we are not going to see normalize in the short term. In the case of Shell, we managed to have a very professional IT system that allows to work from home without significant interruption or disruptions. But at the end, I think that the entire world needs to learn how to live in this new reality. I think there's going to be a lot of positive things after this. Probably when we can get out and have, let's call normal life, we are going to ask questions about how many things we can continue doing remotely. And I think that's a very positive thing in terms of education, in terms of challenging the paradigms inside of companies. But at the end, I think that is working very well. We are managed to continue providing energy in the places where we are a very important source of energy, again, for hospitals, streets, and homes. And I'm very proud of working in this industry, working to provide the energy and maintain a level of normality among us and being able to connect through conference to this one. So I think this conference is a very good example of resilience, of transformation, and I'm looking forward for more spaces like this one.
Very interesting, Anna. And from the point of view of government, a regulatory agency, the impact has been tremendous because we have realized that we can do our work, all of our work, 100% from home. And we were discussing with the minister, there is now going to be a new normal in terms of how we're going to work, and also with the unions. We can perfectly well do our work from home. We were just about to build new offices. I think that project is going to be reviewed, and we are going to give back some space that we took because we actually won't need it. Our work from home, our remote working status or situation will continue indefinitely even after post-COVID. And in terms of efficiency, we have been able, I just came in March 10, and a week later I was locked down, my family locked down in the UK, in Oxford. So everything has, time outside has stopped, but inside we have made tremendous progress in assess the situation of the agency, what has to be done, having continuous contact with everybody at the agency every day. I wouldn't go longer, but I think the new world came to stay, at least in the administration, forever.
Thank you both. Those are great perspectives, and thank you for your time. And Jeremy, thanks for the additional time there at the end. I'll throw it back over to you, and with my appreciation for everyone involved.
Well, thank you all. Let me just do a quick famous La Jolla conference yes or no question, and I love to do this, and I mixed the moderator in to respond. So I think I know the answer, but on Monday we had a panel, and the principal question of the panel, the kickoff session, was: have habits temporarily or permanently changed? So let's just go down the line of Jared, Armando, and we'll end with Anna. So Jared, have habits temporarily or permanently changed?
I think there are many habits that have permanently changed.
Armando
Permanent.
or Anna?
I agree permanently. And for good.
Excellent. Well, that's 100%. On Monday, I think the polling was split down the middle. It was like 52%, 48% as permanent versus temporary. Of course, I guess you could have to define exactly which habits. But speaking of polling, let's wrap up here. I'm going to push the results. Last 5 seconds. If you haven't voted yet, please vote. And I'm going to submit the results and we'll launch them here and show everyone. So the question we posed is, what is the key to reversing Colombia's dwindling hydrocarbon reserves? Fracking, revised contract and fiscal terms, offshore, opening up more and underutilized acreage, or improved permitting processes. Amazingly, we covered all of that in this conversation. So thank you all for a great panel. Here come the results. As soon as I push them. Try this again. There it is. It is pretty evenly divided, but it looks like fracking for the win. So it looks like the audience believes that, at least in this completely unscientific analysis of the virtual La Jolla conference audience, 35% believe fracking is the key to Colombia's reserve outlook. Anna, you'll be happy that offshore came in a close second, tied for second with I guess the colors are a little bit improved permitting processes here. So Armando, your work continues. You know all of these things. You're going to be continuing to work. Thank you so much for all the insights on the pilot projects, which of course relates directly to the respondents here thought that fracking is critical and key for Colombia. Anna, keep working hard on those offshore projects. Best wishes. Thank you all. And Jared, you as well on the unconventionals. Best wishes to you and your team there in Colombia. Thank you all so much. A virtual applause. We really appreciate your insights today. Thanks for sticking around a few extra minutes to make sure we covered all of these topics. The last part was fantastic. I really appreciated those insights on sort of this fact that Armando is talking about revising how much office space is of all the things we talk about, it is amazing, because I guarantee you when you were appointed on March 10th, you would if I said to you, Armando, I think you should revise your office space agreement, you would have said, Jeremy, we're friends, but come on.
Indeed, yes.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
See you in La Jolla in 2021.
For sure.
Absolutely.